The old bridge stood silent. A constant wind whipped around its steel supports. Locals knew its secrets. They knew the story of Ukibana. Ukibana was a young woman, beautiful and full of life. She had fallen in love with a deceitful man. He had promised her the world, but his promises were empty. Heartbroken and betrayed, Ukibana sought solace by the river. The rushing water mirrored her pain. In her despair, she threw herself from the bridge. Now her spirit lingered. She was trapped, forever searching for the man who had wronged her. Her cries echoed in the night, a chilling reminder of her tragic fate. Marcia was a rebellious spirit. She chafed against her parents' rules. Tonight was no different. Her parents were going out, leaving her in charge of her younger brother, Taro.
No leaving the house, Marcia, and keep Taro safe.
Marcia nodded impatiently, barely listening. As soon as her parents were gone, the phone rang. It was her friend, Aya, inviting her to a party.
Come on, Marcia, it's going to be so much fun. You have to come.
The lure of freedom proved too strong for Marcia to resist. She convinced herself it would be fine. She'd be back before her parents. Taro would be asleep. What could possibly go wrong? Marcia's conscience battled with her desire for fun. She knew she shouldn't leave Taro alone. But the party, the music, the excitement, all beckoned to her. She peeked into Taro's room. He was sound asleep, his small chest rising and falling peacefully.
He'll be fine. It's just one night.
Marcia hesitated, guilt tugging at her. Then she pushed the guilt aside. It was just one night. She'd be back soon. With a final glance at Taro, Marcia slipped out of the house and into the night. The air was cool and crisp. The moon hung high in the sky, casting long, eerie shadows. Marcia walked quickly, excitement bubbling inside her. Hours later, the party was winding down. Marcia, suddenly remembering her promise, checked her watch. Panic surged through her. It was much later than she intended. She raced out of the house, fear lending speed to her steps. The streets were deserted, streetlights casting an orange glow on the empty sidewalks. The night, once exciting, now felt menacing. As she approached Ukibana Bridge, a cold wind whipped around her.
Did I just hear sobbing?
She could have sworn she heard a faint sobbing carried on the wind. She quickened her pace, her heart pounding in her chest. Section 5. A Brush with Terror. The bridge loomed ahead, its steel structure black against the night sky. The wind howled louder now, a mournful, eerie sound.
I felt a chill run down my spine. I thought I saw a figure standing on the bridge, a woman in a long white dress.
The figure turned, and Marcia could have sworn she saw a face, pale and grief-stricken, with eyes dark and hollow. Marcia stopped dead in her tracks, fear paralyzing her. The figure began to move towards her, gliding silently across the pavement. Marcia wanted to scream, to run, but she couldn't. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the figure vanished. Marcia stood frozen for a moment, catching her breath. She had never felt such terror, such a palpable sense of evil. Section 6. The Price of Disobedience. Finally, Marcia snapped out of her fear-induced paralysis. She turned and ran faster than she had ever run before.
The wind seemed to whisper my name, the sound laced with malice.
She burst through the front door, slamming it shut behind her. She leaned against the door, her chest heaving, her entire body trembling. She had never been so relieved to be home, but the relief was short-lived. A chilling silence greeted her. The house was dark. Taro's room was empty. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through her. Section 7. Whispers in the Wind. Marcia called out, her voice shaking. There was no answer. She raced through the house, checking every room, every closet, every possible hiding place. Taro was gone. The wind howled outside, and Marcia could have sworn she heard her name again, whispered on the breeze. But this time, it wasn't just the wind. It was a chorus of voices, mournful and full of despair. She ran back to the front door, flinging it open. The streetlight flickered, casting grotesque shadows that danced across the lawn. And then she saw him. S2, Taro? The inside of the house was dark, and the only light source was the streetlight outside. Marcia, looking terrified, stood at the open front door of her house. S3. Taro's small form huddled on the sidewalk, his back to her. He was crying, his small shoulders shaking with sobs. Relief flooded through Marcia. He was okay.
Taro, what are you doing out here? You scared me to death.
But Taro just clung to her, burying his face in her shoulder.
Marcia, I saw her, the lady in the white dress. She was crying.
Marcia's blood ran cold. She knew with a certainty that chilled her to the bone that Taro had seen ukibana. The next morning, the town awoke to a horrifying discovery. A child's shoe was found by the riverbank, just below Ukibana Bridge. It was Taro's. The police dragged the river, but the strong current had carried Taro away. His body was never found. Some whispered that Ukibana had taken him, claiming him as a victim of her own tragic fate. Marcia was devastated. She blamed herself for Taro's disappearance. She had disobeyed her parents, and now her brother was gone. The guilt and grief were unbearable. The story of Marcia and Taro became a cautionary tale in the town, a reminder of the price of disobedience and the very real danger that lurked in the shadows. The legend of ukibana lived on, more potent than ever. Some dismissed it as superstition, but others knew better. They knew that some wounds ran too deep, some pain too profound, to ever truly disappear. And they knew that ukibana still walked among them, searching for the man who had destroyed her and claiming innocent victims along the way. Marcia, forever haunted by her actions, became a recluse. She lived in the shadow of her guilt, a constant reminder of the night she lost everything. The city carried on, but the memory of ukibana lingered. The bridge stood as a stark reminder of her tragic tale. And every night, when the wind howled and the shadows danced, the locals could hear her cries, a mournful lament that echoed through the streets. Ukibana became a part of the city's fabric, a chilling reminder that some stories never die. Her legend served as a warning, a tale whispered from generation to generation, a chilling testament to the power of grief, despair, and the restless spirits that walked among them. They said that if you listened closely on the wind, you could still hear her cries, a constant reminder of the tragedy that had befallen her and the chilling fate that awaited those who crossed her path. The city of Ukibana would forever be haunted by her memory.